All right, moving right along. Here we go. 1910.334, use of equipment. Again, we're still in some part S, which we're going to be there for this and one more video. So, portable electric equipment. This paragraph applies to the use of cord and plug connected equipment, including flexible cord sets. Who calls them flexible cord sets? They're extension cords. They put that in a parenthesis, but come on. Handling. Portable equipment shall be handled in a manner which will not cause damage. All right. Flexible electric cords connected to equipment may not be used for raising or lowering equipment. Flexible cords may not be fastened with staples or otherwise hung in such a fashion as could damage the outer jacket or insulation. Okay, all good advice there. Don't use a cord to pick up your drill. Visual inspection. Portable cord and plug connected equipment and flexible cord sets, extension cords, shall be visually inspected before use on any shift for external defects, such as loose parts, deformed and missing pins, or damage to outer jacket or insulation, and for evidence of possible internal damage, such as pinched or crushed outer jacket. Cord and plug connected equipment and extension cords, which remain connected once they are put in place and are not exposed to damage, need not be visually inspected until they are relocated. So, it's just common sense. Before you do anything, you should any piece of equipment. So you should inspect it. Now, how many people at home going to inspect their drill before they use it? Last time they used it and put it away, it was fine. So, but you should take a quick look at it at least and see if there's any damage to it. And of course, the cord itself obviously should be looked at too. If there's a defect or evidence of damage that might expose an employee to injury, the defective or damaged item shall be removed from service and no employee may use it until repairs and tests necessary to render the equipment safe have been made. It's not just repaired, but tests. Got to be tested too to make sure it's safe. When an attachment plug is to be connected to a receptacle, including and on a cord set, including one on a cord set, I guess it's supposed to be. Relationship of the plug and receptacle contacts shall first be checked to ensure that they are proper mating configurations. Grounding type equipment. A flexible cord used with grounding type equipment shall contain an equipment grounding conductor. Yep, that's an easy one for an OSHA inspector if you don't have that. Attachment plugs and receptacles may not be connected or altered in a manner which would prevent proper continuity of the equipment grounding conductor at the point where plugs are attached to receptacles. Additionally, these devices may not be altered to allow the grounding pull of a plug to be inserted into slots intended for connection to the current carrying conductors. Well, of course, we're talking about here, the most common thing is people yank that ground pin out, and that's not happening as much anymore since more and more things have three-prong ground plugs, receptacles. But at one time, the most common one was just two plugs, and so you can't mess around with the plug, so the grounding pull can't get into the heights on it. It'd be hard to do because they're different configurations, but people will try anything. Adapters which interrupt the continuity of the equipment grounding connection may not be used. Interrupt the continuity of the equipment grounding connection. Can't do that. Conductive work locations. Portable electric equipment and flexible cords used in highly conductive work locations, such as those inundated with water or other conductive liquids, or in job locations where employees are likely to contact water or conductive liquids, shall be approved for those locations. Connecting attachment plugs. Employees' hands may not be wet when plugging and unplugging flexible cords and cord and plug connected equipment if energized equipment is involved. Energized plug and receptacle connections may be handled only with insulating protective equipment if the condition of the connection would provide a conducting path to the employee's hand, if, for example, a cord connector is wet from being immersed in water. Locking type connectors shall be properly secured after connection. So there's a lot of connections you have to put them in and turn them to lock them. That's what they're talking about. Not your standard 110 wall plug. No. Electric power and lighting circuits, routine opening and closing of circuits. Load-rated switches, circuit breakers, or other devices specifically designed as disconnecting means shall be used for the opening, reversing, or closing of circuits under load conditions. Cable connectors not of the low break type, fuses, terminal lugs, and cable splice connections may not be used for such purposes, except in an emergency. Reclosing circuits after protective device operation. After a circuit is de-energized by a circuit protective device, that's when the fuse blows or the circuit breaker kicks off. The circuit may not be manually re-energized until it has been determined that the equipment and circuit can be safely energized. The repetitive manual reclosing of circuit breakers or re-energizing circuits to replace fuses is prohibited. Now they throw a note in here. When it can be determined from the design of the circuit and the overcurrent devices involved that the automatic operation of a device was caused by an overload rather than a fault condition, no examination of the circuit or connected equipment is needed before the circuit is re-energized. Well, come on, we all know what happens. Circuit breaker blows. What do? Go ahead and reset it and try again, right? If it blows again, then maybe, oh, okay, let's look into it. And that's whatever the regs say, that's what everybody does. But I can get that they don't want you to keep doing that, and that doesn't make any sense to keep doing it. So overcurrent protection modification. Overcurrent protection of circuits and conductors may not be modified even on a temporary basis beyond that allowed by 1910 304E, the installation safety requirements for overcurrent protection. That 304 we didn't cover in this because that is strictly really technical stuff that only an electrician would love. Test instruments and equipment. Only qualified persons may perform testing work on electric circuits or equipment. So again, we know what qualified means. They're trained in it, and they're trained in how to identify potentially energized circuits, etc. Visual inspection, test instruments and equipment and all associated test leads, cables, power cords, probes, and connectors shall be visually inspected for external defects and damage before the equipment is used. If there is a defect or evidence of damage that might expose an employee to injury, the defective or damaged item shall be removed from service, and no employee may use it until repairs or tests necessary to render the equipment safe have been made. Now, sometimes they say who can make the repairs, and sometimes they don't. Rating of equipment. Test instruments and equipment and their accessories shall be rated for the circuits and equipment to which they will be connected and shall be designed for the environment in which they will be used. So if you're going to buy a piece of test equipment, when we have, make sure that they're rated for the circuits and equipment which are going to be used, and the environment too. Occasional use of flammable or ignitable materials. Where flammable materials are present only occasionally, electric equipment capable of igniting them shall not be used unless measures are taken to prevent hazardous conditions from developing. Such materials include, but are not limited to, flammable gases, vapors, liquids, combustible dust, and ignitable fibers or flyings. Note, electrical installation requirements for locations where flammable materials are present on a regular basis are contained in 307. So, and that's the short section 1910.334. And we'll cover 335 next. In the meanwhile, be safe.